Black Scully on, check. Got a Sonetti t-shirt on, check. Welcome to another marvelous episode on today's docket. Happy Monday to everybody. Happy June to everyone. Hopefully your May was, filled with a lot of love and joy. And hopefully you guys have an outstanding June as well. We got a lot to talk about on tonight's show. I can't wait to get to it. Can't wait to talk about it. Also, let me know while you're in here what coach you guys want me to cover. Still haven't decided. Got a few ideas for Thursday's episode of Governor's Playbook. But let's go ahead and talk about what's on today's docket. So the ACC and Big 12 formally throw support by how to Protect College Sports Act. And I believe we have a Senate hearing coming up very shortly. I don't know if it's this Wednesday or the following Wednesday. If it's in Washington, D.C., I'm going to try my very best to make it, to at least be there live and tweet and give you guys all of the, necessary intel that I had, at least while I was there. Also on today's docket, Virginia Tech wide receiver Cam Sparks was dismissed after a DWI arrest. I think you can kind of see in Blacksburg that James Franklin, I don't think he's playing around. I think he has a chip on his shoulder, and I don't think you're going to see him pretty much allow a lot of BS this year. I think this is going to be one of those things where people are going to be held accountable. Like, I think at Penn State, I think, of course, a lot of it was him earlier on. He was probably, trying to be accepting to the admin, to the staff, the way that, they seen the program going. I think at Virginia Tech, he's been very outspoken about the type of program he wants. He's been very outspoken on the type of AD he wants. He wants a football-oriented AD. So we're going to speak more on this. And hopefully, like I said, things really do work out for Cam Sparks. Pete Golden explains why he didn't follow Lane Kiffin at LSU. And he simply said, I didn't come here for you. It wasn't disrespectful or anything like that. It was just, hey, I came here. It was an opportunity. Another opportunity presents itself. Now I'm the head coach of Ole Miss. So when I had first seen the news story, I was like, is this him going to react to the probe? I was like, I wouldn't think so, because I think a lot of times you got PR people there for a reason to handle those type of things. But yes, he was just talking about, yes, he came to Ole Miss for an opportunity. Now he has an opportunity to be a head coach, and I think he's excited about it. Also on today's docket, NCAA says Brendan Sorsby college career should be over, and said it is over. So I think we did get some additional news a little bit later on today before I even got a chance to add it to my notes. But this thing's going to be really interesting. And honestly, you guys know how I feel about the NCAA. I think they don't really care about college football, if we're being completely transparent. I think their ideology of this sport and what they think this sport should be is long gone. We talking about, 6-7 years plus ago where, athletes were amateurs and they were student athletes, and that's long gone. I don't think they really care about the sport at all, right? Also, Brent Venables on CFP expansion. I think he had really a great ideology on what it is, on how the coaches feel, and it was along the lines of what Mike Elko said, and I think it's pretty cool. Brent Venables, in my opinion, doesn't say very much, but when he does speak, I think everybody kind of listens. What he's been able to do down in Norman these last few years has been outstanding. Also, for Governor React segment, it's magazine season. If you haven't got it, Athlon Sports preview is already out. Make sure you go get that at your local magazine shop, whether that's Barnes & Noble or wherever else you go to get your magazines. I do know that Lindy Sports Magazine is releasing tomorrow. It's releasing tomorrow. I know that for a fact, so I will be going to the store to cop theirs. And around this time of year, all June, we're going to be reacting to everything that's going on in these various magazines. Phil Steele's is dropping sometime this week. I'm not sure, but the moment it drops, I'm going to go get that, but I'm going to go get Lindy Sports as well. And then for that, we're going to talk about, their ACC predictions, and it's pretty much previewed how they think the entire year will go for the ACC, and also they predicted some bowl games. Of course, there are going to be some spots I disagree, and there'll be some spots I agree as well. Fire Around the Nation segment, the NFF College Football Hall of Fame ballot. Have you seen the names on this ballot? If you love college football the way I do, you get excited about this. And the fact that they only pick anywhere from 20 to 25 people, typically about 18 or so players, and 4 to 6 coaches roughly. So they have a difficult job to do this year. I believe it's going to be announced early January 2027, but this class is outstanding. And shout out to them for lowering the standard for coaches just so Mike Leach was able to be, allowed to be on the ballot, and I think he will get in on his first ballot. He's a college football guy through and through. And then on governor's ruling, I think we're doing kind of a piece that I love editorial pieces for governor ruling. If you haven't noticed, like I love talking about controversial things or political things, and I like to pick a side. I think picking a side is important. I don't like staying neutral. I don't believe in being 50-50. That's not the type of guy I am. But this one's a little bit different. Yes, it's still an editorial piece, but it's kind of almost like hypothetical, right? Yes, shout out to my boy Gridiron Apex, my dog Dante. Yes, Mike Leach should be automatically in. Absolutely. So and the question is, what happens if the Protect College Sports Act fails, right? Could the SEC succeed from the NCAA? And why I don't believe they can do it alone. If you've been watching the show, all of the episodes, we live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6 p.m. You know how I feel about that. And what happens if the SEC and Big Ten both succeed from the union, that is the NCAA? What does that look like for college football? Do we even acknowledge what's going on in the NCAA and who's winning their championship, or are we just watching the Super League? It is so much to talk about tonight. Governor College Football, hashtag go CFB. CFB Nation, your only college football destination. Let's get it. Governor of college football, we're going to recap ACC. Two great defensive minds. They have to be better on that side of the ball. I don't know if you could tell, we had to go with some different background music. I was really pissed off and upset about that. The music that I had been using was this instrumental I found on YouTube years ago. I've always tried to leave with like gospel influences inside of whatever show I'm doing. I think I even had an actual Kurt Franklin show as the opening of the original CFB Nation show we had when we first launched this brand back at the end of 2022 and officially in 2023. So I was heartbroken about it, but I did get a copyright claim when I was uploading my episode. I upload my episode to Anchor.fm and then it sends it everywhere. And then, you know, but the primary one, I think everybody should watch it on is Spotify because they have video podcasts, and that's what I watch it on. And yeah, it was the first time I ever got one of those things. So I was pissed off about it. Of course, I fought it. But for now, we will have to go with some different music until I figure out exactly what I want to, you know, do with the, you know, for the intro. But it's important to me for that cold open and that intro to have some type of gospel influence. So I'll figure that out at some point, right? All right, so let's get into the news. ACC and Big 12 throw support behind the Protect Sports College Act. This is not a surprise. If you've been following along with the ACC, if you've been following along with the networks that support both the ACC and the Big 12, if you've been following along these spring meetings with, you know, Commissioner Phillips, with Commissioner Yormark, this is no surprise. If there's two conferences, you know how like the Big 10 and the SEC is supposed to get along, but it's almost like a Cold War going on in this point of trying to get along because the coaches are always sending a shot at the other coaches in the other conference. We don't see that between the Big 12 and the ACC. And I think a lot of what you see is like, I think Brent Yormark and Commissioner Phillips, I think they talk probably often, and they've always had similar ideologies. Both conferences support the 2014 college football playoff, right? Both conferences last year was in huge support of going down to one transfer portal window. Now both conferences are now supporting the Protect College, you know, Sports Act. This isn't a surprise. If you look at how they move, I've been to a lot of media days. Both of these media days are well organized. They're well constructed. It's minimal. When I tell you minimal, it is minimal, like, controversy going on at these media days. It's not how they move. Like, even in the middle of everything that was happening with Northwestern and Jim Phillips, who was the former, I believe he was the former AD there, moment he came to the podium for the commissioner's opening, he said, hey, we will not be dealing with any Northwestern's questions. And I've been in these places before, and I've seen people completely ignore that and ask whatever they want to ask, but everybody respected it. And it's the same thing with, you know, Commissioner Yormark. It's not a lot of controversy. Things are very buttoned up. A lot of the coaches agree with each other, even if there's points or places they don't agree. That's just the way these conferences work. And why not get behind this Protect, you know, College Sports Act? Now, there's a lot that has to happen for this thing to be passed. And then even furthermore, a lot more things that have to happen to make sure this thing is actually followed, and people are holding everybody accountable, as I say all the time. But it's not a surprise. ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips, and I quote, "Only Congress can provide solutions that truly stabilize the system that changes the lives of so many participants." I agree with that. But how do we get to a point where Congress, right, the government has to come and save, the NCAA? Like, dude, like, who's holding these people accountable, right? Like, why does the NCAA need saving, right? When it's operated on its own for so many years, and now that they're butthurt about the antitrust laws, and now that we have to pay players, and this is the Wild Wild West, and they wanted the Wild Wild West. Like, if you pay attention, bro, and I've been paying attention to this thing for a long time, a lot of it was like this. A lot of it was like that. Charlie Baker and Company, NCAA, a lot of it was just like this. They didn't care. They could care less. They don't care. They glad that it's this bad, right? But something has to change, right? You're seeing a lot of people talking about, like, hey, this system is not going to work. At some point, it's going to give in. Players are getting paid too much money. I think a lot of the people that are managing the money aren't very financial literate. I guess, when you're trying to win national championships, it comes at all costs. But I think sometimes you got to be realistic in that, right? You don't have to offer these players a whole bunch of money. But until we have a structures in place via CBA, a lot of this stuff is just going to be mad, right? It's going to be bad. But Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark, and I quote, said the legislation reflects an important commitment to greater stability, clearer standards, and meaningful protections for student athletes. Along the same lines. This is constantly what you're going to get. When I tell you Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner Yormark, two really button-up people, people that have ran other corporations and had a lot of success for it. Like Brett Yormark used to be like some type of CEO, if I'm not mistaken, of the New Jersey Nets. Well, they're the Brooklyn Nets now, but he was there for that. So these are guys who understand how to run a business, 100%. Nick Saban has been invited to testify Wednesday. He's the first known witness, most important, I think, the most influential, non-coaching voice in reform debate. We need reform. I think that reform happens through CBA, and I think it's important that you hear from important people. I think SEC Greg Sankey has concerns about the media rights provisions. We're just going to see a lot of hoopla about this thing until it's really in court. I got to find out what date this is. I'm not sure if it's this Wednesday, but I saw a paper that Ross Dellinger posted that said that it's next Wednesday on June 10th. But I don't know if that's something different, because Commissioner Godell from the NFL was also invited, but I don't know if that was something separate. So I'll do some more research, but if this is what it is, and it is next Wednesday on June 10th, I will be there. I can promise you that. So, Virginia Tech, in our next story, wide receiver Cam Sparks dismissed after a DWI arrest. I think all universities, right? Not all universities, but most universities and most head coaches are really getting to a point where, all right, they're tired of being players, coaches. They're tired of buttering up to these athletes. And some people just really want to run a tight program, right? I name the coaches all the time and really run a tight program, but, he got arrested, DWI, April 12th. He was due in court, I think, June 18th, and then Virginia Tech just said, no, we're not having it. This is a bad example. This is a team who went 3-9 a year ago, right? But, from that aside, I hope whatever happened with Cam Sparks, they get that figured out, and I hope he gets another chance and an opportunity. And I believe he will. May not be at Virginia Tech, but it may be at another local university or wherever he grew up at. He'll get another opportunity. Third story, Pete Golden explains why he didn't follow Lane Kiffin at LSU. No surprise there. I think the only thing that I question is once Lane Kiffin pretty much said no to Florida, and once it was like, all right, he's going to either take the LSU job or stay in Oxford, I wonder what Pete Golden's mindset was like during this thing. Like, did he really think that they were going to offer him the job, right? Because, you look at the university, it's red hot. They could hire anybody, right? But they stuck with Pete Golden. Golden told On3 Chris Lowe that he never considered following Kiffin to LSU. I didn't come here for you, was the exact words. And that's just a soundbite, right? We know that he didn't mean it that way, but, it is what it is, man. Some people just shoot straight from the hip. But I thought Golden did an outstanding job during Ole Miss playoff run last year. The biggest concern I had was, as a defensive-minded coach, would you be afraid of your offense still applying pressure? Because you got to think about it. Even in the Miami game, they lost, but like those first 2 possessions, I think they went like 6 and out, maybe 7 plays and out. And then that third possession, that's when Keywan Lacey broke for that long run to kind of give them some momentum headed into the rest of the game. But I thought he did an outstanding job. Like, really a tough Georgia game that they were able to win during the playoffs. I thought he did an outstanding job handling it and being thrown into that situation. Yes, that is Lane Kiffin's team. That's the team he built, was his vision. But, of course, Pete Golden helped with that. But you saw something special when he was officially announced the head coach and how excited the players were for him. And it was one of those things where I couldn't tell if it was, all right, y'all doing this for TV, or like it was pure excitement, but it's because they was just excited for him to get an opportunity to prove that he's an outstanding head coach. But I think it was the latter. I think they were truly excited for him to get an opportunity to prove that he would be an outstanding coach. So what will Ole Miss look like this year? I think you kind of seen them floating around everywhere and everybody's top 25, anywhere from like 8 to 12, because they do have some outstanding returning talent. Of course, they did lose some talent to Baton Rouge, but you know, you got Trinidad Shambliss coming up back. You got Keywan Lacey coming back. You got a defensive-minded coach who's able to steal Luke Farrelly away from Clemson. I think this team is going to be all right. How well do they fare in the SEC? The SEC, I think, is loaded this year. And there are some teams like, you know, who we had a lot of questions about, like the team of Columbia with South Carolina. We had a lot of questions about them last year. What does that look like this year? You know, with a new offensive coordinator, they're running a new system in a veer shoot. What does that look like this year? Still have an enormous amount of talent. Can they protect Lenore Sellers? Like, it's so many talented groups in the SEC. Missouri seemed like they just been like in that CB tier for a little while in the SEC, but there's just times like I think they were 4-0 or 5-0 before they played Alabama a season ago, and Alabama ultimately won the game. College game day came down to Mizzou. The fans showed up really well. I don't know. It's just one of those things. The SEC is really difficult to predict year in and year out. I promise you, it truly is. All right, our fourth story. We got NCAA says Brendan Sorsby college career should be over. Do you agree or disagree with that? That's just really my question to everyone. Do you agree or disagree that Brendan Sorsby college career should be over? I have two opinions about it. The first opinion is I was able to meet this guy. I had an interview with him at Big 12 Media Days, last year during the Media Day cycle last July. And from what I seen, he's just a stand-up kid. He interviewed really well. He's very professional during the interview. And I thought he did an outstanding job, in the interview. But, you really don't know what people do behind closed doors. And gambling has become one of those things where it is so, back in the day, I think people kind of hid their gambling, even though you couldn't, gamble online, what you could now. But you say, hey, I'm about to go to the bar, and you really going to the casino. But I don't think it is frowned upon as some other addictions like a harsher drug or alcohol. I don't think it's viewed the same way. I think that is the one side of it, the one side how I feel about it. The second side of it is it's clear that college athletes aren't able to gamble. It is. So, in my opinion, and the way I've always ran business, whenever I was in a leadership position, if you break a rule, you break a rule, and you just got to deal with the consequences of it. It's just how I always been. And he broke, one of the rules you just don't break in this sport. I don't think there can be a slap on the wrist and we're okay with it or we're comfortable with it. And it's terrible because I thought Texas Tech had an outstanding opportunity, not only win the Big 12, I think they also had an outstanding opportunity to really have a deep playoff run, because I think Brendan Sorsby is better than advertised. I really do. I think people don't quite understand how great of a dual threat guy he is. They don't. But placing, almost 3,000 bets, over $30,000 while at Indiana, that's a lot of betting. That's a lot of betting, even going to games and betting. But, how many of us comment on this and we all make bets? I bet. I don't bet that much, but, what I'm saying? I bet. But, probably to the NIL money he was making, that's not a lot of bets to him. So, he went to treatment. Hopefully that treatment was able to help him. But either way, he'll get an opportunity. If it's not in the NCAA this year, that's cool. He'll enter his name into the hat of the supplemental draft, and somebody will draft him in the supplemental draft. He'll probably be the first pick taken in the supplemental draft. All right, our fifth and last story of our Into the News segment. Brent Venables on CFP expansion. He was at the spring meetings, of course, down in Destin, as they do every year. If you want to be in complete total control, win your games, he's right. I mean, how simple is that? And this is a team I like a lot. This is a head coach I like a lot. And honestly, if I'm being candid, If he had the talent that was in Clemson this season and go defensively, do you know how good that defense would have been? And I promise you, go look at Oklahoma's roster. Whether you do it on Our Lads, whether you do it on Athlon Sports Book, they got updated depth charts in here that the university send them. Look at their depth chart. Look at their overall roster. You don't see as many transfers as you do across America, right? You on the offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball, they make just a couple transfers, right? This is one of the best constructed rosters in the country. I promise you. And if they can get huge dividends on some of these players, I think Peyton Bowen and Eli Bowen will have outstanding years. Again, I think David Stone is going to come into emergence this year. Oklahoma has one of the best teams in the country. I cannot emphasize that enough. They truly have one of the best teams in the country, right? So, Oklahoma finished 7-2 and won their final 4 games, including wins over Alabama, Missouri, LSU, to earn a CFP bid. Happy for them. And like I said, when I speak about Oklahoma, and I've said this earlier, if they could just be like 12% better offensively, look out, right? And like Big 12 coaches, ACC coaches unanimously supported the 2014 CFP. SEC kind of like been, it's weird because you see some coaches like gently support it because they don't want to really offend their commissioner who really wants this 12-game thing. Is going to stay the same. At some point it's going to change. You don't know when. That's just really a great philosophy to look at it as. It is going to go up. The amount of teams is going to go up. Like Mike Elko said, more coaches to keep their jobs, right? I think that's the way a lot of people was looking at the CFP expansion. But shout out to Brent Venables, shout out to Oklahoma. I think they're going to be outstanding. That is our Into the News segment. Let's go ahead and move right along into Governor Reacts. We're going to talk about these ACC previews that Athlon Sports did and how I feel about it. Let's get to it. Alrighty, so Governor Reacts. Athlon Sports predicted the ACC order of finish, all 17 teams, bowl projections, and an all ACC team. ACC championship prediction. They had Miami versus SMU in the predictions. I was talking to he hasn't released it, so I can't say who I was talking to. But I was talking to, one of my good buddies in the business. He's not affiliated with CFB Nation, but he's just one of those people I trust. We pick each other's brain all the time. But I seen his top 25 poll for the 2026 season. I think he's going to get a lot of engagement for it. And we was just talking, and I was just intrigued by some of the teams he had and how high that he had some of the teams. And one of the teams he had was SMU. Once again, this is one of these dudes that I trust, and I know how much he cares about the sport. And then I'm starting to see magazine publications behind SMU as well. But you can understand it when you start to understand their roster. You look at the quarterback, right? Like, in college basketball, I think that's a guard-driven league. You go look at who's at the point guard and at the two guard, and maybe who's at the small forward. You can kind of dictate who's going to be able to do what, right? I think elite guard play matters in college basketball, especially once you get to March Madness because it's a one-and-done scenario, right? I think in the NBA, back in the day, now it's kind of the wings and maybe PGs and some bigs are elite, but we seen what Wemby doing, so maybe the bigs are coming back. But I thought in the past that was always like a big man driven league, right? I think in college football, while you do need team success because these quarterbacks don't play defense, but I think when you look across America and you trying to make these predictions, you do want to look at the total team. Can they win a war of attrition on the line of scrimmage, both offensively and defensively? Can they play on the back end? Do they got wide receivers, in spots that can make outstanding plays? But you also want to look at their quarterback position, and that can kind of give you an idea what a team is going to be like. And then once you look at the supporting cast and the defense and the offensive and defensive line, then you can make a sound prediction on what a team looks like. And I said that to say this. People who are picking SMU to be the runner-ups in the ACC or think they're going to do really well this year, you have them in your top 25, I see it. I get it. A lot of what happened last year was part on Rhett Lashley. I think more the onus was on him than it was on Kevin Jennings. I think even Rhett Lashley will tell you that more the onus was on him than Kevin Jennings. I expect Kevin Jennings to make a huge jump this year. But there are some outstanding teams in the ACC, and I think Athlon Sports, even though they do a great job on their magazine, I think they omitted a few teams, and I'm not sure. Of course, they did the homework. But there's a team in the ACC I don't think enough people are paying attention to, right? We'll get to it in a second, right? So let's assess all of this. Miami Hurricanes should be number one projection for everybody in the ACC. I don't even care if you're in Blacksburg, you're in Charlottesville, you're in Winston-Salem. I know you love your school, but if you had to do an honest take on who you believe will be the first team, the best team in the ACC this year, Miami should be number one. Should be number one for a myriad of reasons. Malachi Tony, Cooper Barcade, let's start there. The best wide receiver room in the ACC. Mark Fletcher at running back. The best running back room in the ACC, right? Isaac Brown of Louisville, of course, up there as well. Then he got Darian Mensah, not only the best quarterback in the ACC, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and he can honestly show that he's the best quarterback in the nation this upcoming season. That's how good Miami is, right? That they are legit. Bryce Fitzgerald, what he did as a true freshman last year, this team has players, and I think we see an increased focus from Mario Cristobal. I think we can look at the past and pinpoint some opportunities where Mario Cristobal didn't game manage situations really well. That situational football, a lot of games are won and lost due to situational football. I think we've seen that, at times. There was an increased focus for Mario Cristobal last year. I think you'll see that increased focus this year. He's always had the ability to recruit, right? I think he's even done a good job at times developing talent. But now when you begin to throw the excuses out of the window, right? Because college football is the business of eliminating excuses. It's about eliminating excuses and getting results. You got to get results. No matter how hard you work in this sport, you can get to work at 5 a.m. You may not leave at 9 p.m. That don't mean a damn thing if you ain't winning games. If you ain't winning games, nobody cares. Now, if you're working like that and you're winning games, okay, we care, right? We cared about Urban Meyer when his family's like, yo, you're working too much. He got 3 championships to say, hey, I worked this much for a reason. And if we had a playoff back in, 03, 04, when Utah was really good, that might be another conversation as well. So Miami should be number one on everybody's list in the ACC. This is not debatable. We can debate the SEC. We can debate the Big Ten. We debate the Big 12, American, Mountain West, Pac-12, Maction, Sunbelt, Con, USA. We can debate all of these other conferences, but the conference that shouldn't be up debate for who should be the projected, the preseason. We don't know with injuries, teams may get hot at the right time. We don't know any of that, but I'm just saying based on roster construction, who you have a head coach, the success you had last season, your return to production, you look at the ACC, you say, hey, the Miami Hurricanes should win the ACC. That's what we all say, right? If you watch Darian Mensah at his time at Tulane, then you watch him in Durham, you say, hey, he's headed south going to Coral Gables, you say, this Miami team is really good. That doesn't surprise me. Now here's where we start to get to really interesting conversation. So SMU was second on this list. And you can see, okay, they had instant success their first year there. They went undefeated in the conference during regular season play. Them and Clemson had one of the best conference championships in recent memory. Well, we can't really say that because then Virginia Tech and Duke said, hold my beer last year for their championship, which actually did go into overtime. And Clemson and SMU one was so close to going into overtime. I was there. It was a cold night in December, but it was an outstanding game, right? So they're number 2. Like I said, we spoke about them. Like them a lot. I ain't mad at them, right? Got the Louisville Cardinals, number 3. Jeff Brown, one of the best coaches in the country, not just in the ACC. He runs a tight ship, and I love it. I think Lincoln Conhost can be effective here. I'm just expecting Isaac Brown to play much better than he played last year. I'm not sure what was going on with Louisville last year. I'm just expecting him to play a lot better. Clemson at number 4, I don't agree with. Not because they don't have talent. They have talent. I think Sammy Brown's one of the best linebackers in the country, right? And I do trust Dabo, and I know Dabo has a chip on his shoulder. But at what point do we start to look at this program and say, all right, you had Brandon Streeter. He got thrown in the bus in 2022. Enter Garrett Riley in 2022. You had Garrett Riley. He got thrown in the bus in 2025. Enter Chad Morris. Yes, you had a lot of success with Chad Morris when you had the likes of DeAndre Hopkins, Taj Boyd, Sammy Watkins. Yes, you had a lot of success then, but how the game has evolved, right? And that's what I'm interested to see. You got a guy, Christopher Vizina, not a proven guy at QB, but I've seen him play. I think he can be a pretty formidable quarterback. But to me, once you look at the schedule, once you look at who these teams play, Clemson starts the year with LSU and Baton Rouge. Lane Kiffin's going to be ready. Lane Kiffin's going to be ready, bro. I'm not sure about that. Virginia Tech at 5. I love Virginia Tech. At 5, Ethan Grunkmeyer was listed in Athlon Sports as one of the breakout players to watch this upcoming year. The ability to keep Brent Pry, who was the former head coach, as a defensive coordinator. He's an outstanding defensive coordinator. Him and James Franklin had a lot of success when they both were at Penn State together. I like Virginia Tech a lot. Don't get me wrong. Virginia Cavaliers, one of the darlings of the sport last year. Tony Elliott has really flipped, I think, this program around. Few plays away I'm not sure if they'd have made a college football playoff even if they beat Duke, but it would have been an outstanding discussion on Selection Sunday. It really would have. On Selection Saturday. I don't know what we call it, right? It would have been an outstanding discussion. Them at 6, I'm okay with. But I am beefing about one team, and I'm still beefing about one team. Let me know in the comment section if you figured out this team I'm beefing about. Pitt Panthers at number 7. Love Pat Narduzzi. I think he's an outstanding head coach. Really rubbed me the wrong way with his take on the Notre Dame game. He said, hey, we could lose 85 something. And then they proceed to get they, kick. Like, it was, to me, no heart, bro. and that doesn't represent the Steel City. And I told him that this team, I told him this, I think it was ACC Media Days, either 2023 or 2024. I think it was 2023. I told him, I said, your teams kind of represent that image of the Steel City, like the steel mills that bring your lunch pail to work, that blue collar, hard-working atmosphere that is in that city. That wasn't that last year. It wasn't. Just to say, I don't care if we lose to Notre Dame, as long as we win this next one, that all that matters. You can say that to yourself. You can't say that to your team. You cannot say that to the media, right? Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, when I tell you this, Brent Key's one of the best coaches in the ACC. He's done an outstanding job since his time there. And Will Mendoza, how would he look in that system? They got a new offensive coordinator. Buster Faulkner is now in Florida. There's a lot of changing pieces, but I tell you, they got one hell of a bell cow. And Justice Haynes, a lot of people don't even realize he's in Atlanta at Bobby Dodd. So they could probably be better than this. If I had to pick right now, yes, Pitt beat the hell out of Georgia Tech last year, but I think that they're going into this season, I think they're better. UVA, I love Bro Pibula. I think him at quarterback, if you could just get him to increase his focus, I think he can be outstanding. But I would probably favor Georgia Tech over both of these teams. All right, now here's where I get pissed off. NC State at 9, dog? NC State is at 9? NC State is the 9th best team in the ACC, bro. Do you fools watch college football or do you just skim through it? 9? 9? That is crazy to me. NC State is at 9. Have you seen their schedule? Do you know they have one of the best quarterbacks in the country, CJ Bailey? And they're at 9. NC State is at 9. I'm about to find their page, and we're going to go over their schedule real quick. Because I can tell you what, this team may lose 2 games this year. They may lose 2 games this year. Let me find them. I think this is in alphabetical order. This is NC State schedules this year. They play East Carolina. I'm sorry, that was last year. They play UVA. I think the UVA game is the game in like Brazil or something. I think they can win that one. Then they play Richmond. I think they can win that one. At Vandy, we don't know what to expect from Vandy this year. I do trust the Barton Simmons Clark Lee connection. We don't know who we're going to have at quarterback, whether it's Curtis or Belowitz. Not sure. But I think they can go in Vandy and win. Then they play Appalachian State. It's a home game. They have a lot of home games this year. They'll win that. Louisville. That's a debatable. You can say Louisville and Vanderbilt kind of debatable, right? But let's say they split one of those and they're ended up right now 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say they're 4-1. Then play Wake Forest 5-1. Stanford 6-1. Home against Cal. If it was at Cal, I gave it to Cal 7-1. Then they play Duke 8-1. Syracuse 9-1. At Florida State, that'll be an interesting game. What Florida State team we get this year? Mike Norvell, your seat is hot, brother. It is very hot. What team we get this year? At Florida State, it'll be difficult. And then they play at North Carolina. Now, I just told you their schedule. We'll read it again. Richmond, Virginia's neutral site. Richmond, at Vandy, Appalachian State, Louisville, Wake Forest, at Stanford, Cal, Duke, Syracuse, at Florida State, at North Carolina. Now, how many games you count, right? And even if you say, oh, they'll probably lose to Louisville and Vandy, that's cool. They're 10-2. But there's a case that they go 11-1. And I guarantee you this. They go 11-1, they're in the ACC championship. They're in the ACC championship. They avoid Clemson. They avoid Miami. They avoid some really good teams. Like teams, I don't even think they play Georgia Tech. They don't play Georgia Tech. Do they play Pitt? They don't play Pitt. They avoid some really good teams. They don't even play Virginia Tech. So if you don't have NC State going 10-2 or better, hell, let's say they lose a game they shouldn't lose. We know how Dave Dorian been over the years. Let's say they go 9-3. They still have an opportunity. But to be the 9th best team in this conference, looking at the talent that they have, right? I don't see what everybody else sees. I really don't. I don't. This is going to be really interesting to me. But, to me, NC State is a much better team. NC State, Dave Dorian and company, CJ Bailey and company could absolutely win 9 or 10 games this year. And don't be shocked if they win 11. Because they have that. I think they have 8 home games this year. They got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They got 7 in a neutral site. That's pretty much 8. You only got to, well, you got to go on the road 5 times technically, but one of them is a beautiful city. So I don't know. That's interesting to me. We got Cal at 10. Cal is a really interesting team, right? We know that JKS is there. We know JKS is outstanding, one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC as well. Tosh Dupoy is there now. He's their new head coach now. What do you guys expect from Cal? I had a lot of fun. I had a CFB 26 Dynasty with Cal. When I tell you, it was one of the funnest teams I played with. It forced me to play differently because JKS is a pocket passer, and I typically like a dual threat quarterback. But when I tell you that Cal can be really good this year, even in Tosh Dupoy's first year there, I think he'll recruit really well there. He was able to take some players with him from Oregon, just guys to add depth. Hey, you never know. Maybe they do get some pieces and ended up getting quality playing time. But that's a tough one. Florida State, where are you at with Florida State? Because I've seen both sides of the spectrum. I've seen USA Today have them as the 22nd best team in the country. Do what you want with that information. I've seen other publications like Athlon kind of have them like middle of the pack / lower tier of this conference. Mike Norvell is on the clock. He is on the clock. Now, I know Wake Forest has lost an immense amount of talent, but when I tell you, if there's a more infectious coach in college football, it'll be difficult to find. You'll be hard-pressed to find one with better energy than Jake Dickert, head coach of Wake Forest. This kid embodies, I said kid, he's a grown man. He embodies energy. He embodies excellence. Yelling at 6 a.m. in the morning. That's what he's going to do to the top of his lungs, bro. And you saw what Wake Forest was able to do last year in the ACC. Like, who gave them a chance? Like, I knew they had DeMond Claiborne. I was interested to see how the Robbie Ashford experience worked, right? But, I mean, what did they finish last year? Last year, I think they finished 9-4 overall. Beat some really good teams. They should have beat Georgia Tech. It's not a game a lot of people talk about because they got cheated that game. It was an overtime game. And then, damn, Florida State beat the hell out of them last year. I don't remember that. So, we got Florida State ahead of them. I guess the issue is yes, Florida State beat the hell out of them last year. And we do got somewhat of a quarterback competition here. But I think Gio Lopez will ultimately be the signal caller this year. I think he'll be in a system that is much more comfortable. I think he's a better passer than Robbie Ashford. So, I would expect some excellence out of this team this year. Just trying to look at their schedule. They play Akron at Purdue, Miami at Louisville. That's brutal. Stanford at NC State, at Cal, Virginia. They play a tough schedule this year. They really do. They really do. They got a tougher ACC schedule, much tougher than the NC State team I was talking about a little bit earlier. And then Florida State, how you feel about them? Wake Forest, how you feel about them? Duke. I trust Manny Diaz, even with losing his number one wide receiver, a wide receiver put up 1,000 yards back-to-back seasons, right? Even losing Darian Mensah, I look at this team, I say they still have Shepard. They still have Manny Diaz. Manny Diaz won an ACC championship in his second year there, right? Before Mario Cristobal, oh, by the way, if you keep in score. Like, yes, this team did an outstanding job. And last year they lost some games. They probably didn't have some business losing. But I look at them. I look at, some of the players they got on this team. Walker Egat is going to have a huge chip on his shoulder. And Duke being 13th, I understand just from a roster construction perspective, but don't be surprised if they outplay that 13. Truly do not be surprised because it wouldn't surprise me at all. North Carolina at 14. I have some beef here. I really have some beef. Like, to me, yes, Boston College, Stanford, we know Frank Wright no longer the head coach there. It's another for me. I believe Frank Wright, what is he, the offense coordinator for the Jets or something like that? And I understand why them two are at the bottom. But I think I can make an argument that BC, even though, we're not the biggest, Bill O'Brien fans, huge fan of what he was able to do at Penn State, but things aren't quite working well for him. But, I think I can argue that Boston College may be better than North Carolina this year. What some of the disgrace that we seen out of UNC last year, and of course, Bill Belichick, one of the greatest coaches ever at the NFL level, one of the greatest coaches, period, whether it's defensive coordinator, head coach, this guy has done a lot of winning, and you can't take that away from him. But the circus I'm talking about ring brother Barnum and Bailey that we had in Chapel Hill last year cannot continue. His wife, girlfriend, whatever you want to call her, respectfully, stay out the way. Stay out the way. Stay out the headlines. Please, stay out the way. Stay out the headlines. And it's interesting I say that, and I'm probably going to get in some trouble for saying what I'm about to say, but I don't care. I'm the governor. I say what I damn well please. Just watching this clip series, which is really interesting. I don't know if any of you all seen it, about everything that happened, kind of the moments that led up to Donald Sterling, getting recorded and said what he said. But yeah, I'm going to just leave it at that. I said it. Y'all heard it. Y'all just kind of, use your imagination. Y'all smart. You know what I'm saying? Use your imagination to figure out what the governor really trying to say. Just put it together. But I'm not sure if North Carolina is better than Syracuse, Boston College, or Stanford. I remember when Fran Brown got hired, how everybody was so excited about the hire. Him coming from Georgia. I watched this opening press conference, and I just see like how fired up he is. I'm like, bro, I got another 5 to 10 yard Curry. I mean, I'll go lace him up for Syracuse. Like, that's how I felt. I was ready to play ball again. And now he's like disrespected. A lot of people don't like him. They saying he's one of the worst coaches in college football. And to me, it's like, how soon you forget? Like show me you're a casual without telling me you're a casual. Like, just show me, right? Because you truly didn't pay attention. Yeah, hey, shout out to my dog post game. You truly didn't pay attention to, what happened last year, right? Lost to Tennessee. It was a tough loss to Tennessee, but they were starting to get on the road. They beat Clemson. Steve Angeli got hurt early in the game. I was at that game. I was on the field. And I tell you, if you look at what Cal McCord was able to do with Fran Brown, I think Steve Angeli is going to put up those type of numbers. Yes, we're going to have a quarterback competition. Hopefully Steve Angeli is ready to go by the beginning of the year. But I can tell you, there's some teams ahead of Syracuse. Syracuse will outperform this year, right? And Fran Brown's the type of guy, oh, y'all don't like me? Let's go. Just give me more motivation, and I'm going to put it up here. Like, just give me more motivation, because I promise you, they're going to outplay this 15 that they got them at. They're going to outplay a couple teams that's ahead of them. I guarantee you that, right? And then we have Boston College, Stanford. Stanford, I just really hope they figure it out. That, to me, it is difficult for their location, how it's known as a really good school, then all of the travel that they have to do. Same for Cal, but I think Cal has adjusted to it a lot better than they have. I'm going to say something. Should Stanford consider going to the Pac-12? Like, the buyout will be crazy. Could they financially afford it? I doubt it. But should Stanford consider going back to the Pac-12? Right? I know there will be a downgrade. It'll be below them. But, Oregon stays there. Washington stays there. Should they consider going back? Or will they find a way to dig themselves out of the ground? So, that's the Athlon Sports. Their rankings, like I said, not a lot of issues here. I'm just trying to truly understand the SMU thing. And I understand it from some perspective, but to me, I think if we lace them up right now, spot the ball at the 50-yard line at a neutral site, I will have Louisville beating them. I'll probably have Virginia Tech beating them too, neutral site. I'll probably have NC State beating them at a neutral site as well. So I'm just trying to understand that. But that's that segment. Had a lot of fun with that one. Hopefully you guys had a lot of fun with that one too. Let's move on to our next segment, Around the Nation. All right, so for Around the Nation, we are going to talk about this Hall of Fame ballot, like just some of the names, right? Like, I enjoy our Overreaction Monday talks, and especially when it's all of us, like, when Boomer's there, and D-Now's there, and Nino's there, I'm there, and Moon's there, and it seems like sometimes we'll just have like a random name battle, right? When we're just talking about a segment, and D-Now is really good at pulling some random name that I haven't heard from in years. I'm like, damn, I remember that guy. The nostalgia I had looking at this list, he's the one that shared this with us, and we'll probably end up talking about this, so I'm not going to spend too much time here, but it's the College Football Hall of Fame ballot. The names on this list really brings me great nostalgia, right? This will be announced in 2027, early 2027, sometime in January. But just to see the 80 FBS players that are on this list, the 9 coaches that are on this ballot, and I think voting runs from July 1st and to, like I said, early 2027. To me, Mike Leach is an automatic. We have some other people that are just, to me, guaranteed automatics. Cam Newton, what he did that one season, to me, he's an automatic. I'm not even looking twice at it. Yes, he's an automatic. RG3 is another automatic for me. Yes, I roasted RG3 about his ideologies on the 2014 CFP. Yes, I would do it again. Yes, I do understand he works for like Fox or CBS or something like that. Whatever conference that is, whatever conference is their main game. Y'all see where I'm going there. You just gotta catch the context clues sometimes. It's like Blues Clues with me, man. You better keep up. That's all I'm gonna say. Melvin Gordon, if you don't remember how dope Melvin Gordon was in college, he was amazing. He was amazing. And that reminds me of that pure Wisconsin football. When I always bring up Luke Fickell and them going to the air raid, I'm thinking about what them guys did back in the day, right? A.J. Hawk is on this list, two-time All-American, won the Lombardi back in 2005. Marshawn Lynch, 2006 Pac-10 Offensive Player of the Year. Fun fact, I've been buying these magazines for a very long time, right? Fun fact, I used to confuse Steve Slayton with Marshawn Lynch because they both had on blue and gold jerseys. They both wore number 10, if you remember. I don't know why. I don't even know why I brung that up, but yeah, I brung it up. Patrick Peterson had one of the best defensive back seasons I remember in recent memory. I think he should be on this list. Percy Harvin does not get enough respect. I'm telling you, like, we all talk about Tavon Austin, and Tavon Austin, best high school tape I've ever seen, and this college tape was ridiculous too. When I tell you, this dude Percy Harvin, what he did at Florida as a kick returner, punt returner, they will put him in the backfield too, and that's where you really get nasty at. You hand him the rock, yeah, he probably could career average like 9 yards per carry at Florida as a running back. Like, he was just so electric as a running back. He was so electric in the passing game, bro. Like, I tell you, when I seen his name on this list, I'm like, yeah, like, Requiem for Percy Harvin, because he does not get enough respect. His NFL career didn't meet the expectation of what his college kind of set up for it. But at the same time, bro, if you remember, you appreciate him. Terrell Suggs on this list, to me, yes, no brainer. Yeah, he should be here. And then we got another guy, Manti Te'o. And then the Manti Te'o situation has to be discussed, right? When we think about what happened in recent memory with, Coach Belichick not making it into, I think what was his first ballot for the NFL Hall of Fame. To me, it was a disgrace. It was more about controversy than it was about the great coach he was. And I think people just talk about the head coach, but what he was as a defense coordinator for the New York Football Giants when Bill Parcells was the head coach is about that too. And the fact that he wasn't inducted, I don't care about that other stuff. He should have been inducted. So, and then that's when I look to have the same conversation with Manti Te'o. Do you remember 20? It's like, nah, I ain't going to even go there. Do you guys remember when Manti Te'o was in college football? And y'all remember the stories? Yeah, y'all remember the things that man, I was like, man, this man's going through hell right now. Like, I wanted to share a thug tip for. I said, this man going through everything, bro. His girlfriend got cancer, this, that, and the third. But, like, some of that wasn't even true. I think her name was, like, Lene or something. But, that never existed. So I wonder, will they hold that against him, right? He was a Heisman finalist. If you don't remember the Manti Te'o years, you don't know who. Look him up. I know post-game know about Manti Te'o. Post-game, I want to get your opinion on this if you're still in here. Manti Te'o, I think he should make the ballot, but will he make the ballot, right, this first time around with, everything that happened with the girlfriend incident? Let me know how you feel about that, brother. And there's some other, standouts that I like growing up. May not be here, may not get elected, may not be a part of the, the 18 to 20 players. But Brad Banks, if you remember, Brad Banks, when he played in Iowa, he was outstanding. I think Iowa had like a good run on quarterbacks. This was like him. Then they had my boy Big Game Drew Tate, who I was a huge fan of as well. But Brad Banks, like, just, bro, like, he just made me want to play quarterback, bro. And I just always undersized to play quarterback, too short to play quarterback. So I always played like corner, kick returner, and I played flanker sometimes too. But in the wing, so you just a wing, bro. You ain't throwing you the rock. You running, bro. But yeah, Brad Banks was one of those really fun guys to watch. And he was a Heisman runner-up. Dude was just impressive. He's really impressive. Tavon Austin is another one of those guys. I just told you guys he had the best high school tape I've ever seen. My boy Dante of Gridiron Apex know about that. Chris Carter, it's interesting because he had an illustrious college football career, even better pro career. I think he's one of those guys who just took it up to the next level the moment he got in the pros. Ken Dorsey is like one of those dudes. Yeah, it didn't pan out in the NFL as greatly for him. I think he's an outstanding coordinator now. But, like, when he was in college, they just didn't lose. Their team was just that damn good. They didn't lose. Ryan Kerrigan. Who remembers Ryan Kerrigan? He played not too far where I'm from. For they were the Redskins back then. Elvis Dumerville. That's one of those names I haven't heard in a while. right? Kellen Moore is up here as well. Antoine Randall, that dude was nasty, bro. We remember as a wide receiver, he could play quarterback. He throw that thing too. And he'll run a rock too. So just some great names on this list that I felt like, hey, we absolutely have to cover. And then the coaches, like Mike Leach is in. I don't even want to debate that. Larry Coker had a really great tenure at Miami where, like, Miami just went through a string of really outstanding coaches. I don't think he was everybody's favorite, right? Tommy Tuberville is another name on this list. Will he make it? Just one of those great college football names. Jackie Sherrill is on here, and then Ralph Friedgen. I remember him during his tenure at Maryland. I went to a lot of games during that time because back then, I don't know if Maryland still, actually they still do this because I go to their games all the time and I always see the kids there. We would get free tickets to Maryland game. If you play football, they'll bring them to your, your coaches and all of that and your commissioner of your team. And yeah, you was able to go to games like that. So yeah, I remember Ralph Friedgen from back then. So yeah, I think it's just some of these guys, it's just, come on, man. Like, we don't even got to debate it. Like, it's no reason to be debated, but I'm happy for this, and I can't wait to hear the final result of this. All right, that was kind of quick. Let's get into government ruling. We're going to spend a lot of time here. All right, man. Y'all know me in these editorial pieces, bro. Is what I love talking about. I don't care if we got to get... You'll never hear me talk about politics, you know what I'm saying, because I don't really care for it at all. But the politics of college football, I love it, and I do care about it, and it's something I'm always talk about. It's crazy how stark that disparity is, though, with that, right? It's really, really interesting, right? So my governor ruling for today is what happens if the NCAA loses the SEC and the Big Ten. And I think this is a discussion that we've talked about, but have we really, like, got hypothetical with it, right? Because I feel like it's my job as a credentialed member of the media. I go to these games. I'm at the media events. I feel like it's my job to report on what's real. It's my job to report on the news. It's my job to give my takes and my analysts on the games that I've seen, or when I'm doing predictions, I'm supposed to be thorough in that. Right, it's almost like a onus or a responsibility to be thorough in that and to be honest when it comes to that. So I think, like, the semantic aspect of it, especially in the off season, I do enjoy making shows in the off season more than in season. So it's easy, right? And I think that's why I kind of added the governor's playbook element to it. So I was like, yeah, I can get jiggy with that too. So let me know in the comment section if you guys got a coach, coordinator you guys want me to cover for this week's episode. I will decide tonight. I'm meeting my boy Moon after this airing of the show, so we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So, the Protect College Sports Act is on the table. We got the Senate hearing Wednesday. Saban is testifying. Signetti warned us, right? He said 12 to 24 months before the system collapses. These are strong words by people we respect. This coach just went 16-0, right? Won a national championship. And he told us, we have 12 to 24 months before the system collapses. It's kind of like Animal Farm, bro. I've never thought about it from that perspective, but that is scary. That is really scary. 12 to 24 months before the system collapses, right? And then in thinking about this series, I wanted to think about it two ways, right? The SEC succession from the union, that is the NCAA, this is something that I'm not just making up. The ADs are talking about it. I think we had a coach. Yeah, we have coaches talking about it, right? We saw Kirby Smart talk about, hey, man, if we can't get this thing fixed, we just need to leave, right? And these are people that are just tired of the madness. There is so much you have to deal with as a coach in college football. I think it's the most difficult sport to coach in. I think college basketball is a close second because you got a new roster every year, but it's so difficult coaching in college football. And some of these things and some of these items are, in my opinion, they're easy to. Easy is a poor choice of verbiage. Let me find a better word. I think they can be fixed if you're willing to put the work in, right? I think a lot of it is, but let's first look at part one. Could the SEC survive alone without the NCAA? My answer is absolutely not. They couldn't. We just had some great softball over this weekend. I don't know if y'all paid attention to White Chocolate's daughter. That was dope seeing her go back to Texas. She was for Texas Tech, but going back to Florida, hitting the home run, flipping the bat. But we wouldn't get those matchups, right? That's a Big 12 versus a SEC team, right? So to me, the survival of football, yes, they can still bring in revenue, they can still bring shares, they're still going to make a lot of money, but we're not going to look at who's the winner of that conference as a national champion, right? They could not survive alone. Then you think about the other sports, like March Madness, it's still going to be March Madness without the SEC. I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. Like, it's still going to be March Madness. We still get a lot of teams, and we're still going to watch it, right? But they couldn't. That's my answer, right? Even though they generated over $1 billion last year, that's impressive. And they need legitimacy. And I think that legitimacy come from, all right, if they're going to succeed from the union, and that is the NCAA. I gotta make sure I say that before we start talking about history and stuff like that. But they're gonna need the Big Ten to do it. Now, if the Big Ten and the SEC both say, you know what, Charlie Baker and the NCAA, we've had enough. You guys aren't addressing anything. Y'all not fixing anything. There are problems that need to be fixed. We had $40 and $50 million rosters. CBA could solve a lot of this. You guys don't care. You don't care. This bill didn't get passed. You don't care. The Big Ten and the SEC, I think, could survive, right? I really do. I really do believe that. With the Big Ten, they could survive a secession, and it gets deeper than that, but we're going to move forward. And why the SEC and the Big Ten together is the only version that works. Together, the SEC and Big Ten control over $2.5 billion in revenue from this sport alone. Yes, they could monopolize the sport. They can monopolize the TVs. Like, think about it. Together, they already have major television partners. They have ESPN and the family of networks, Fox, CBS, and NBC. Together, they are monopolizing the game, right? Together, they have 16 of the 20 most valuable programs in college football. Now, Notre Dame, who's independent, I wonder how that works. Like, would they decide to still be a part of the NCAA? Because I guess they would need it for basketball, but for football, they're independent, so I guess they could still be a part of the Super League too, which would be fantastic, right? Together, they have 16 of the 20 most valuable programs in college football. Together, they have the geographic footprint to call it a national product in the Southeast, Midwest, and Texas. The Big Ten brings more of a northern and Midwest markets. The SEC brings the South. And altogether, that's pretty much an entire conference, other than the West Coast. But they still have some West Coast teams in Oregon and USC and UCLA. So, yes, I think this could work. This is a blueprint. This is something that can actually physically work. I truly do believe that. And the champion of the joint SEC and Big Ten Super League playoff is the most legitimate title contender in football. Could you imagine what that playoff would be like? I'm wondering, the amount of number of teams they will have, right? Do they do an 18 playoff between the super conference? Super conference together make what? That's like 32, 33 teams. Half of them, or maybe 14 of them. 12 of them will probably be perfect, goes to the playoff. I think that would be outstanding. I think they could survive without the NCAA. Now, what would it look like the other way around, right? I think that's something that we need to discuss as well. Part 3, the trigger for secession. The Protect Sports Act fails or gets watered down beyond its usefulness. These are reasons why they might succeed, right? And we see the coaches and the AD saying it now. High settlement litigation becomes unsustainable under the NCAA umbrella. Yeah. The salary cap framework never gets established. The portal remains chaotic. The financial model keeps breaking programs. It's not working. Yes, I do agree that a lot of this, just play these players less money, manage your own budget. These schools should be creating their own budget. Go get a GM so the budget is managed and stick to that budget. We don't care. Stick to the budget. Sankey and the Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti look at each other and say, hey, we built this product. We generate the money. Why are we sending checks to Indianapolis to fund an organization that cannot govern us? That's crazy. And that is the moment that Cignetti told us, right? 12 to 24 months away, if nothing changes, from the system breaking down. That's what Cignetti told us, right? So I think that's the triggers for the secession, right? Part 4, what the new structure looks like. Big Ten and SEC, they form a governing body together. That's easy, right? We got this new Super League. They run their own playoff. 18s, conference championship. Whatever they want to do, they run it and they govern themselves. They govern the tampering, right? They govern the contractual obligations. They figure out a way to do CBA. Like some of the issues that we have across America, they deal with, and they don't got to deal with the NCAA, right? Right? Notre Dame gets an invitation immediately. Of course, Clemson, Florida State. The ACC, they want to leave too, right? And speaking of which, what happens to the NCAA, right? Because we still got group of 6 conferences. We still got 2 Power 4 conferences. What does it look like? The NCAA without the SEC and Big Ten is fundamentally different organization. It's not the same. What remains, the Big 12, ACC, and group of 6. And then that's the teams that decide to leave, right? Yes, Mancy. Yeah. He was outstanding. He was. He really was. Do you think he's in automatically with the controversy and all that? So yeah, the Big 12 becomes the top football conference in the remaining structure, or the ACC, depending on how you look at it. And to me, I think Big 12 can survive this scenario. Can the ACC survive this scenario? How many teams from each conference would be willing to leave? So I think the NCAA, man, my bad, I'm behind you. You're ahead. Had to rewind. Brad Banks was that dude as well. Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah. Now, it's all good. I don't know, for some reason, I stream through Restream so I can send it to Kick, YouTube, and then our CFB Nation Twitter. So, yeah, I think it's just backlogs a little bit. Sorry about that. So, yeah, Part 6, the national championship question. Do we ever honor a team, right, that's not in the super conference as a national champion? I think not. I think we wonder. I think it'll be almost like the BCS era again, where we kind of wonder, hey, if these two teams played, what would that outcome be? So I did this segment for one particular reason, a very important reason, to say this. NCAA, get your stuff together. You really do need to. Charlie Bacon Company, get it together. Y'all been warned by some of the finest coaches in America. Been warned by Kirk Cincinnati. You've been warned by Kirby Smart. You've been warned by myriads of media members. Act like you care. Be involved, because this thing is important, right? We all say that the NCAA doesn't care about football. You probably should care about football more. It generates the most money. The reason why we don't have the Big East like we did back in the day of basketball is because all of those schools that left wanted what? They wanted football money. Act like you care. Football matters at the collegiate level. Hold everybody accountable. It's not difficult to do. Set laws, follow up. Hold everybody accountable. It's not difficult to do, but if you don't, I'm telling you, these conferences may leave, and that won't be good for you guys. March Madness will still be good. Some of the other sports will still be good. Football will not. Really all I got to say about that. Fun episode today. Hope everybody is enjoying their Monday, man. I've really had fun with this. Still mad that I don't have my old song, my background music for my cold open, and my background music for my intro. But it's been a fun episode nonetheless. Don't forget, we are live Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Always Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And on Fridays, Eastern Standard Time. That is going to change when the season starts, because typically on Fridays, I'm traveling. So we'll all together figure out a show schedule. I can't wait. Media Days. We're just a month away from Media Days. They're right around the corner. And when I tell you the content you guys are going to get, my boy Moon has been in contact with a myriad of schools already. The things that I have lined up for you, the things that he has lined up for you, it's going to truly be magnetic. As I always like to say, there's no more victory in the sport that survives and advances while college football has the greatest regular season. Until next time, I'll see you guys at Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let me know who you want me to cover next in this Governor's Playbook series. Mike Denbrock, I haven't covered them. Just say the word. I covered Mike Denbrock post game. Y'all have a good one. Governor of college football. We're going to recap ACC. Two great defensive minds. They have to be better on that side of the